The Songwriter Chapter 8, Return to Shore. On a cold night in Blarney Street, I was taken in from the rain by a tenant who saw me huddled on the pavement. He said I could sleep on the staircase on the condition that I never told anyone who it was that let me into the building. I was grateful for the shelter there. The deal was that I could not use the staircase between midday and midnight, as the caretaker would be around then. I spent the mornings on the staircase writing lyrics and transposing chord progressions, and in the night I would wander around the streets of Cork until midnight, when my friend would open the front door of the block of flats. I remained on the staircase for a week, but the caretaker discovered me there early one morning, and I was sitting there playing the guitar, so he told me to leave. But at least I had somewhere dry and not too cold for a little while. The shops in town around Cork had all been closed over the Christmas and New Year periods, so it was a waste of time going busking there. So far since leaving Sydney, I had been in a nightmare. The journey I had encountered was marred with incidents. Now and then I found money on the street. One night as I walked along Western Road, I saw a £1 note about 50 yards away, just lying there on the pavement. There was a wind blowing that night, and I was sure that the note would be blown away. I kept my eyes on it as I got closer to it, and it wasn't moving. It was like it had been stuck down with glue. And when I got to the note, the wild wind was still blowing. I stooped down to pick it up, and then I went and bought a hot chip with the money. It was January 1989, and I discovered a place in Liberty Street near the church that gave out penny lunches for hungry men. It didn't matter if you hadn't got a penny, you still got a lunch. I was busking again in town and had a few bob in my pocket, so I booked into the other youth hostel in Wellington Place, where the rate was £4 a day and the beds were warm and dry. On Sunday I went to Mass in Liberty Street. One evening I decided to check out the JWs on the far end of McCurtain Street. I didn't know much about the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I hoped there might be a handout after the meeting was over. I wanted and waited for something or someone to come. I felt like I was waiting for a bus at the top of Mount Everest. No one came near me or asked me if I had any need. I had never begged before. I considered my busking sharing my talent. But one day, due to bad health, I couldn't go busking, and asked a man on the street for some spare change to get me some food. He said, "I got no change," and kept walking. Then I came across an organisation called Grow in Liberty Street, where you could get a cup of tea and a sandwich if you went to their meeting twice a week. One day, as I went to church in Liberty Street, I had the thought to grab the poor box from the front of the church, but I couldn't bring myself to stoop that low, even though the hunger pains were extreme. I drifted out into the sea of scruples and pulled back in then by the threads of my faith. I returned to the shores of my heart, where hunger had a good hold of me now. I noticed a lot of buskers around Cork now, and sometimes there was barely enough room to swing a kit, looking to find a spot to play. The competition was fierce, and everyone was looking for that pot of gold. There were travelling bands, look-alikes and sound-alikes, dancers and chancers, all sorts of hummers and strummers, clusters of buskers all in a row, 6-string pluckers and space truckers, last-effort muckers with their mojos and banjos, like a crazy freak show, hour after hour, all along the Watchtower, from Oliver Plunkett Street to the City Hall, and where I would wing it and blow them all away with a song or two. Music was flowing like Murphy's on the Lee, back and forward day after day, and the buskers of Cork had returned to share their talents. And from God knows where, and the echoes of something great was happening, there was a surplus of Irish songwriters on the corner of every street, and they were all wanting to be heard, all looking for a break, all talented and all very unique. High class with a capital C. In French Church Street now and then, a few professionals would show up unannounced, to play for the passers-by, freestyle on their acoustic guitars. They sure know how to pick the right spots, free from traffic noise and excellent background. Half the luck, I thought, as I waited for their spot when they had finished. Cork is a pretty place, full of charismatic streets and alleyways, from Carey's Lane to Church Street, to Paul Street and Winthrop Street, where buskers played for pennies, patiently hoping for a large, overgenerous audience to come. Scattered around the city are pubs where live music can be heard every night, and every now and then one of the street buskers would get to play there to the crowd, in places like the Lobby, the Grand Hotel, and the Hottie and Stye. During the day there are a number of traditional music sessions that are happening all over the town, where you'd see many Irish eyes all smiling and the lulls of laughter echoing to the parade of tourists that make their way inside, take a seat and listen. One night as I stood by the bridge by the River Lee, and in that magic moment as I looked at the moonbeams shimmering across the water, a song came to me, and it was of the time that I had sleeping on a staircase in Blarney Street, sheltered on stairways, sleeping on stairways. I can't catch the rain. My chilblains are red as the western plain. Landings are lonely, old places to rest. Birds on a wire must have a nest. They're sheltered on stairways again tonight. Birds have a nest. They can't sleep on the fly. Linos for comfort on creaky old floors. If I had the keys, I could open some doors. Sheltered on stairways again tonight. Birds have a nest. They can't sleep on the fly. I started to busk that song around Cork to the passers-by, and there were many there who heard and stopped and spoke to me. One fellow said to me, "You know what, you're good enough to be working," and that pleased me. I met John, who worked at the dairy in Cork, and he asked me to come around to his house that evening and teach him how to busk. That evening, when I went there, I asked him to play me some guitar chords that he knew. The next day I took him to French Church Street and stood beside him as he played a Jimmy McCarthy song called Ride On. He was very nervous and sung quietly to people passing by in single file. They hardly noticed John was there, but the longer he played, the more confident that he became, and after 2 days John had come out of his shell. I was so happy to see him enjoying the busking. And we busked together for a week, and then he was on his own. We said goodbye, and he said he was grateful for my help, and he gave me his phone number at home and work. Another fellow I met was PJ, an ex-champion boxer. He stopped on the pavement one day as I was busking my songs, and he made a comment that he liked what I was doing. And then he started talking, and he offered me some accommodation with him for a while in his flat on the old Blackrock Road. He was a good friend and never once asked me for anything for keeping me watered and fed and warm and dry. And I ate his grapes and I drank his milk at no cost. I was happy there with PJ until I drifted away out on a sea of scruples again, thinking how he had become a meal ticket for me So I returned to the shore, and I felt that it was now time for me to move on. So after I found this derelict council office behind the City Hall, I explained to PJ that I had to leave. I was happy enough to be there on my own, where melodies could find me, like on a direct line to my soul. These were rare times and fair times to share on the songwriting path in a town where I had met some really nice people. Busking around Cork was strange, but I had a small change there in my pocket to keep me going, and memories of old men in rags putting their last coin in my hat. Strangers who became friends, but now it was time for me to move on. And I decided to head north to Belfast to busk my way and my songs to the people from my hometown. End of chapter 8.